When I think the term mini-boss, I can't help but think of the midway boss battles found throughout the Zelda dungeons. While the term isn't exclusive to the Zelda series, mini-bosses have been a staple throughout it, sorta acting as a mid-boss fight to each temple that blocks off the dungeon's special item. As with each mini-boss Link conquers, he's rewarded a gadget that will make that dungeon far easier. But the question for this video is, which mini-boss is my favorite? This video is going to be a countdown of my favorite mini-bosses found throughout the dungeons in the Zelda series. So while some people may consider overworld bosses to be similar to mini-bosses, I'm not going to consider them on this list. This will only cover mini-bosses that are found throughout the dungeon, so that already excludes Breath of the Wild entirely off of this list. But I think that's fine, as we could use a breath of fresh air and look back at past enemies throughout the series. So with that explained, without further ado, here are the top 5 mini-bosses in the Zelda series. Number 5. The Iron Knuckle, not to be confused with the Dark Nut, are these largely armored knights which wield a battle axe that can really put on some damage. They are mini-bosses that can be found repeatedly in Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, but the exact one I'm referring to for this list is the one found at the end of the Spirit Temple in Ocarina of Time. This is the battle against the temple's sage, Niburu, as she is possessed by Twinrova and forced into the Iron Knuckle armor. Link then has to face her before he takes on Twinrova, up until she finally regains her senses and stops fighting Link once you shredded her armor. As similar to all Iron Knuckles and even most Dark Nut battles, Link is only able to damage them by chipping away at their armor. But because of their insane amount of armor, they end up walking really slow, making it easy to set up attacks on them. But if you get attacked on the other hand, it will hurt badly. Which I mean makes sense, as Link is dressed like Peter Pan, taking on fully armored knights. Let's see, something strange. It's not an ordinary enemy. What? What's going on with this enemy? Can we see the truth? No, okay. But because of it, they make these battles so intense. As in a game filled with imaginary monsters, it's nice to have Link face off against another knight with similar weaponry. And this applies for both Dark Nuts and Iron Knuckle battles. But what makes me prefer the Iron Knuckles over the Dark Nuts, as they are somewhat similar, is the fact that we actually know who's behind the Iron Knuckles in the armor itself. As not just with Niburu, but all of the Iron Knuckles are actually Gerudo women that have been probably possessed by Ganondorf's evil. And this can be seen both in Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time when you slowly break away their armor. That and the fact that the armor has Gerudo symbols behind it. Which is really crazy when you think about it, because that means with each Iron Knuckle Link killed, there was a Gerudo woman behind it. Pretty dark, but that is the sort of lore that makes me find them so fascinating. They are Knights of the Gerudo Women, fully armored up, acting as a human shield blocking Link's path, altogether for making such badass mini-boss battles. Number 4. The Garo Master has to be one of the series' strangest mini-bosses, which should come to no surprise as they are found in Majora's Mask, the most bizarre game in the series, but that's what makes them so interesting, as the Garo Masters are Garo generals that have a really weird backstory for a mini-boss. They were once a tribe of ninjas that were enemies to the Akana Kingdom, which is exactly where they can be found. They randomly appear and attack Link as he roams the canyon. But those usually aren't Garo Masters, as they are just normal Garo ninjas that act as normal enemies. The Garo Master, and the one making this list, is the mini-boss that takes place in the Stone Tower Temple. Link faces against a fast-paced ninja with dual flame swords, which honestly brings a level of swordplay that is somewhat lost by most enemies, as the series really does lack humanoid enemies, so whenever the game treats you to one, I always find them so much more fun than whacking at a huge enemy's weak point. It is a fierce battle against a proud Garo Master who can't accept his defeat towards Link, so at his last breath, he blows himself up. No, I'm not kidding, as he even quotes, "Die I shall, leaving no corpse. That is the law of us Garo." Though it makes you wonder what corpse was even under their hood, as that is never revealed to us even when obtaining the mask throughout the game. Though, interestingly enough, according to Pamela's father, the Garo are just empty shells animated by willpower. So again, not exactly sure what the Garo Master had to blow up there. But with that explosive sign-off alone, and their interesting lore, they make for one of my favorite mini-bosses within the series. Number 3. I bet a lot of Zelda fans think that the Guardians may be the series' most technologically advanced enemy. What if I told you from the very beginning of the Zelda timeline, the series had something just as good? And I'm talking about the forgotten technology that predates the timeline itself. Sounds confusing, right? Well, for those who may not know, let me help clarify. While in Breath of the Wild's timeline, Hyrule is known for their ancient Sheik attack, before Hyrule was even established, back in Skyward Sword's era, they had also ancient tech that was forgotten before the events of Skyward Sword. And this being the ancient tech found throughout the Lanayru Desert that is brought back through the Timeshift Crystals. So yeah, if you're just catching up, that's a lot to take in, but sadly that's the extent to what we learn about this ancient tech. And the reason why I bring them up outside of the cute little robots that do exist from it are the mini-bosses that are found throughout the Lanayru Sandship and the Sky Keep. It being Scarvo and Deadfuse, the ancient robot pirates. Yes, I'm not kidding, they're pretty much robot pirates. These pirates face Link in a sword-like duel in which the goal is to push the enemy off the platform to win. Though they use a drill as their sword, the battle sorta plays out like a match of who's the best sword fighter. And I'm sure you may already be picking up on the fact that I prefer these more humanoid battles. And that is exactly what I get from these mini-bosses. They can be bested rather quickly if you are good with motion controls, but still feel fair even if you aren't. It's honestly these battles in which the motion controls are at its best. So to take a page out of IGN, these battles make you feel like Link using his sword.
So if you can cheese him with constant stabs. Come on, you've been stabbed, sir. Yeah, there we go. Okay, we did it.
Number 2. Gorons are usually good guys, but in Goron minds, they're your enemy. Mistaking Link for an intruder when he's just there to help, Link must face Dan Goro as a mini-boss. This mini-boss battle has to be one of my favorites just because of what it references. You face Dan Goro on a magnetic platform, using your iron boots to help weigh you down as you battle such a large Goron. Link's goal in the battle is to stop Dan Goro in his tracks and throw him off of the platform into the lava. Similar to how Mario would throw Bowser into a bomb in Super Mario 64.
Reminds me of the whole Bowser battle where Mario throws Bowser off the platform or the little thing they fight on. So there you go ahead.
Well, I'm not sure if Nintendo intended for that Mario reference with this mini-boss. I can't help but think of that, which honestly makes this boss battle hilarious to me, along with the fact that under his badass looking armor, he's just a goofy looking Goron who didn't mean any harm. But being able to see Link put the wrestling he learned from the Elder Goron to use and beat such a massive Goron, to try to convince him that he's on his side, makes for such a great twist for a mini-boss. Like, this doofus is on your team, but he's too dumb to realize it. Runner-up. For a runner-up, I have to mention another boss from Twilight Princess, who doesn't start off on your side, but surprisingly takes your side once beaten. This being King Baldwin, the king of Baldwins. Or one of the many kings if you played Hyrule Warriors, cause yeah, it gets pretty weird seeing 100 of them on the field.
Fight people on. Look at him. Ugh, he's so ugly. In the HD version, I just can't stand the way he looks with all of those textures.
But in Twilight Princess, he acts as an overworld boss at first, but becomes one of the mini-bosses in Hyrule Castle. Link faces against him one last time in Hyrule Castle in an all-out duel that makes the king realize that he should side with Link over Ganon, because in his eyes, Link is stronger. And that is quite the compliment for Link, especially coming from a behemoth like King Baldwin. It's honestly a weird relationship they have, as he was the leader of the enemy who first attacked Ordon Village, sending Link out on this entire mission. And throughout the game, he even appears again and again, with even stealing Colin away at one point, resulting in Link having to knock him off horseback to save back Colin. So honestly, you would think Link would consider him as a rival or hate his guts. But nope. Because at the very end when Link bests him for a final time, the dude just goes troots and acts like none of this ever happened. But yet, oddly, I respect that. Because even though he gave Link so much trouble throughout the game, he finally learned in the very end and sided with Link. Number 1. To no surprise, the number 1 mini-boss throughout the series has to be Link. Dark Link, that is. I mean, come on, what could be cooler than your dark self? While I know that concept isn't anything new, as Nintendo has its fair share of characters with a dark alter ego, Dark Link though has to be by far one of the most iconic dark versions of a hero. It's a battle against an enemy that knows everything you would do, making for the most fair battle imaginable. Unless you use the Bigoron Sword or Megaton Hammer to cheese the entire battle. But yes, Dark Link, found in the Water Temple, is where Link must conquer his dark self. The battle has you face against Dark Link in a room that is nothing but water and a dead tree in the middle. The floor reflects the room from the water as the door leading in and out of the room mirror each other, giving this illusion that everything in the room is mirrored, even down to the enemy itself, as Dark Link materializes out of Link's reflection. And this honestly has to be the perfect setting for a mini-boss that resembles yourself. And the battle itself plays in a similar fashion, as Dark Link tries to mirror every movement you make, though with a few special attacks of his own, and attacking and blocking when seems fit, making you not wanting to spam your sword attacks all willy-nilly, as he'll do the exact same back to you. Though while mentioned he can be cheesed with other items, the battle itself is a really interesting way of combat, as the enemy shares your exact playstyle, moveset, and weapons. Altogether, Dark Link is such an interesting concept that I really hope gets brought back in future titles. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what some of your favorite mini-bosses are, and what other countdown lists you'd like to see me cover within the series. And please leave a like if you enjoyed. There are tons more videos similar to this in the works, so also make sure to subscribe not to miss out on any. But as always, I've been ZeldaMaster, and I'll see you all in the next one.